Sometimes the most horrific stories aren't in some dramatic, grand tale. They're hidden in plain sight, buried in the mundane places, the dry, dusty pages of old record books. This is one of those stories, and the unbelievable and incredible.
It all kicks off with this. One desperate final sentence, scrawled in Virginia plantation ledger back in 1857. A single line, written by the man at the center of it all, was the key that unlocked a secret so terrible, he literally tried to put it out of existence. This is the central mystery we're diving into. An old ledger, a business document that lists children, all born to one enslaved woman. Notes inside are just cryptic and chilling. Things like light as cream or blue-eyed, passion. For decades, historians have been trying to piece this together, to figure out who this one was and why someone went to such extremes to erase her.
So to really understand the crime, you have to understand the man behind it, Robert Hartley III. He was the heir to the Hartley plantation and found himself in some very desperate circumstances that pushed him to cook up a scheme that is just unthinkable.
When you look at his life, there's this huge act. Publicly, Robert Hartley looked like the respectable planter, but behind closed was absolutely drowning. He had crippling gambling debts from his younger days. The price of tobacco was tanking. Financial pressure on him was just immense.
Then, a personal tragedy strikes, and it was the catalyst for this whole nightmare. After a really devastating miscarriage, his Margaret is told she can never have. Back then, this wasn't just a personal break, it was a financial disaster. No heir meant no long-term security, no easy access to loans. The whole future of the plantation was on very shaky ground.
Oh, what was his solution? It was a cold, calculated, four-step business. He chose a light-skinned, enslaved woman, Sarah. And he kept her isolated in a remote cabin every time she was pregnant. He used contacts in Richmond to sell infants who could pass as white to families who couldn't have their own. Maybe the most chilling part, he documented everything, every birth, every payment in that secret ledger of his.
You see, this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a system, a horrifying system. Now let's really focus on the victim of this, Sarah, and the just staggering scale of what she was forced to endure.
I mean, just look at this timeline. This represents a relentless 22-year cycle of pregnancy and birth. From 1835 all the way to 1856, Sarah's body is treated like a machine, forced to produce a child roughly every year and a half. The sheer amount of time this went on is impossible to wrap your head around.
18 children, born to one single woman, and stolen from her a single time. Let's let that number sink in for a second. 18 lives, created only for profit. 18 moments of the most profound trauma imaginable.
The cruelty of it all was so systematic. Records show that each baby was allowed to be with Sarah for just 3 days. It's just long enough for a bond to form, and it was severed. Each child was a commodity, sold for up to $3. You have to understand, at that time, that's more money than you could make from an entire acre of tobacco in a year.
You know, a system built on something this cruel, well, it's unstable by very nature. It's bound to collapse. And the end of Sarah's life really marked the beginning of the end for Robert Hartley's whole operation and for the plantation itself.
Here's the stark, brutal fact. In June of 1856, after 22 years of this ordeal, Sarah's body just gave out. She died from complications right after giving birth to her 18th child. She was only 44 years old, and that tiny died just 3 days later.
Now, look what happens immediately after her. In the months that follow, the plantation is hit with this wave of sabotage. Fires, broken tools, fences falling down. The enslaved community there had watched Sarah for 2 decades. It really seems her death was the final straw. It wasn't some big organized rebellion. It was more like a quiet, steady resistance that just brought the whole operation grind to a halt.
You've got to be wondering, how on earth do we know any of this? Its entire history was meant to be torched, erased, but it survived, somehow, served in 2 secret and totally documents that tell the exact story from the ends of humanity.
On one hand, you have Robert's ledger. It's the crime documented by the person who did it. It's basically a business record, all cold, dehumanizing language. Then, on the other hand, we have the secret diary of Rachel, the enslaved midwife. Hers is the crime witnessed. It's a moral of suffering, and it's filled with the inhuman detail.
Listen to this. This is a direct quote from Rachel's diary. After the very first birth, she delivered all 18 of Sarah's children. Every single time a baby was taken, she risked her own life to write it down, to be a witness when nobody else would. God is what I've seen. It's just an invaluable testament to her courage. The fact these 2 documents survive means we can know Sarah's story. But what do we do with that knowledge today? What does it really tell us about justice and the unbearable truths that history can hold?
Get this, as this is maybe one of the most jarring of the whole story. The very ground where Sarah suffered and died,
It's a shopping center now. There's a historical marker there, and it means the Hartley family and their nation. Sarah's name, her 18 children, her 2 decades of torment, not a single word. It's like it's been literally paved over.
That really gets to the heart of it. We have the proof, we have the ledger, we have the diary, we can document exactly what happened. As one historian pointed out, that's not us. Documentation is definitely not institution. The truth of what happened can never undo the profound injustice that Sarah and her children went through.